You're listening to REIAcast, a podcast of the Southwest Florida Real Estate Investment Association. REIAcast brings together a variety of real estate entrepreneurs from all over the world to share tips and ideas. The core purpose of the Southwest Florida REIA is to help members become more profitable and successful through networking, education, and empowerment. Here are your hosts, Jeff Tamburello and Michael Lyons.
I am Jeff Tamburello, one of the directors of the Southwest Florida REIA, joined by Lee Nuggent. Lee's upcoming speaker at one of our meetings. Real estate guy, lot to offer. You do a lot in the space. Thought it'd be interesting just to have a conversation with you. So how you doing today, Lee?
And I'm fantastic. Hope you guys are too. And I appreciate you having me on.
Now, it's real estate's fun right now. It's a choppy, slightly downward market, and it shakes out the weak hands. And particularly if you're not data driven, it's a really hard market to. If you're data driven, it's pretty easy. I just evaled a deal that was a really heavy rehab, and I took all the comps for 2 years by quarter, did a price per square foot, and then put a poly 6 trend line on it and figured out where the price per square foot would be in 6 to 9 months. So that's what I've got to run my numbers off of, because it was a really heavy rehab. It was a really good deal on Fort Myers Beach, but it was a really heavy rehab, and permitting out there is a nightmare. You have the private provider, the whole thing, and it's a tough market to rehab in. And by the time I got done with it, the deal really didn't work when you take the negative. But the worst thing you want to do is go out there. I mean, it is on Fort Myers Beach, so if you become what they call an accidental landlord, I guess it's not a horrible life.
Could be worse places.
Yeah, but you rent at the from the Lonnie Kai, I guess. My boat's in St. James City. Joke is, I could. I can rent property from the water, so that's even cooler.
So, wonder if you can write off your fuel expense.
No, you could in theory. So
yeah, in theory. So.
You write off everything until they audit you.
That's a fair point. I try to set the other side to where I'm not on there. We keep just about everything white hat with just a little bit of gray sprinkled in.
So. Yeah. So tell us your story.
Well, it was the evening of October 23rd, 1979. But I don't think you want to start that far back.
Yeah.
Kind of speak. It was actually 2015. My wife and I, we started investing in real estate. It was really kind of came about from opportunity. I had my resume out on Monster and Indeed. See, I was never afraid to quit a job. So I wasn't happy where I was, and I was looking for something else. And I was contacted by a company that said, "Hey, look, come out and you can work for your sales. But before you join the sales team, we need you to buy the program. And, it's real estate coaching. So buy this, and then you get to go out here and sell it. You can make your money back plus all this unlimited commission." And I don't know about you. I kind of grew up around a few. So I learned always to kind of be rolling around in the back of my mind, what's in it for them? How can they get me? Right. So I started going on Google, reviewing everything, and I saw this one review from a stranger that I can't even remember who it was. But he said that this company has great information, but it's nothing that you couldn't learn at your local library. Well, I went to Google instead of the library, and I started studying. For about 3 months, I found a course on YouTube, started going through all that, and towards the end of it, one evening, I shut my laptop, and I told my wife, I said, "I think I want to take $1,000, and I think I'm going to start wholesaling. I'm going to get some signs, and I'm going to go put them out. I'm going to do this, and then we're just going to make all this money." And, that's where she changed. She actually went and said, "Let's go to the bank and see if they'll approve us for a loan." And, well, that's one of the challenges, Jeff, is because back then I had a 450 credit score. Prior to that, back into when my wife really decided to get serious about me. So I didn't really have high hopes. But over the years, I kind of improved that, started spending responsibly, paying off bills. And it's amazing what that does to a credit score. It actually goes up. So with all that, we went to the bank, got approved, and found a duplex. And then we found another duplex. And we were able to go in there and, well, really, if we negotiated well, we didn't have to bring money to the table, which that's a plus. So I just went out there, and the first duplex that we found was actually, they wanted $93,000. We paid $67,000, and it appraised for $104,000. So we got a small check back at closing. And then the next duplex we closed on like a couple weeks later. They wanted, we paid 35 and it appraised for 53. So we went in, started stabilizing, and at that point I was hooked because again, we started with like $6,000 to really grow into this. I actually started with three, and then I realized I was being too nice on the landlord aspect of things because I think a lot of people, when they become landlords, they want to change the world. They're very mission driven in the sense that, I'm going to understand the plight tenant because I did. I grew up poor and we understood what the struggle is like to live paycheck to paycheck. Problem is, well, I had to pay the note. So after that 3,000 started to run a little low, we put another 3,000 in there, and I started to get a little bit tougher on things. We actually started evicting and making sure that the properties are stabilized. So that's kind of where it started. And once that strategy happened for us, it was in June of 2015 that the credit union that I was going to said, "Hey, look, the rules changed. Now we can no longer fund you on a loan to value basis. It's going to be loan to cost. So you're going to have to bring 20% down on every deal you do." So then I thought to myself, all right, well, that's not ideal because we didn't just have $100,000 sitting around to pay 20% on everything. So I told her, I said, look, when my mom passed away, I'd inherited, 20 acres of basically wetland, Louisiana. So could I use that to secure a line of credit, purchase cash, and then get a rate and term refinance? How about that? And she said, yeah, yeah. I said, all right, well, I need to hold it for any period of time. One of the great things is they didn't require title seasoning. So I didn't have to hold it 6 months or a year. I could start to really just speed it up. So I'd negotiate well, buy cash, refinance. And that's really what started it all for us, to be honest with you.
Sounds like the Burr method, actually, before the Burr method became the Burr method.
Yeah, yeah. That's still to this day model that we use when we acquire our rentals. We minimize and to the best we can. Don't leave any money in the deal. But our refinance is under a responsible. We don't do the max cash out refi, which is what I'll be speaking to on the presentation next week.
I can tell you, I've watched over the years, when the market takes up like 2021 and everybody's got all this equity and they want to grab it and go wide, but you've got this property with a great adjusted basis and, that'll perform forever. And now you stepped up into a market that you more than likely wouldn't buy in, but you get excited that you feel like it's free cash and all you've done is dilute your investments. And I mean, I understand the idea of scaling and going wide and it's free, you don't pay taxes on technically, and all that stuff. But at that point, you do have to function against that debt. And
That's the problem, right? So I've seen a lot of people use Burr and go Baroque,
yeah,
because whenever that shift eviction rents contract or the market shifts and you're stuck in a refinance with a higher interest rate and lower value on the property, what do? And that's why I've been strong proponent against, that cash out strategy many people are out there preaching against. Again, not that there's any wrong or right. It's like going to 15 different dojos out there. You want to study martial arts. Everybody's got their system and their train of thought. Mine is just to be a little bit more conservative on that and use the equity in a different way.
yeah, amen to that. It's and I mean, if you've got the holding, yes, you can do that. But it's generally when you get to you're going and buying properties, you're excited. And like right now, me and just a little project in Georgia. Like I need to work before it becomes a bigger boat. So I gotta, and you're getting cheap too, right? Yeah, I'm not doing that. I like my boat, and I need cash flow, not expenses. And
Right.
but right now I'm just dealing with Georgia from a realtor, and I was ready to do it just because I feel like I need to do it. It was kind of marginal, a little skinny, and just so I basically my counter is going to kill this deal. But if they say okay or do it, then okay. But yeah, 100%, man. Keeping that basis. I have I own a brokerage. And we have a brokerage customer that we helped in '09 buy 29 houses. Back
Right.
then it was his on the we did half Lehigh, with the assumption that, an eye wall will never take out markets well until Ian showed up, but the half basis in Lehigh at that time, most of these were never lived in houses was 45 grand. and the average CAPE was about 60. I mean, those are, that's about an
You
every
said
70 year.
45 and 60.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Wow.
Rob's meetings. He bought 4 Chinese drywall houses, never lived in, for 25 each.
Wow.
Yeah, I was trying to pick on him. I'm like, man, you way overpaid. That's how bad. But yeah, and that for him, investments, I sold a couple, but these investments, you're never going to replicate that basis. I mean, not ever. So I'm like, I
Right.
never sell these until they're fully depreciated and then do something. So, but
Even
that's
then, maybe
about it.
exchanges.
Yeah, and that you can buy the same houses again. You know what I mean? But it's kind of a once in a lifetime deal. That's why keeping that adjusted basis low. That's an investment that pays you, of course, of your life, and if you do it right, your kids' lives.
Yeah. Well, and just kind of the tease strategy that we use, we just go and yes, we've got all this equity in the properties. But the great thing is, if you've got a nice relationship with the bank, they'll take a second position and give you a line of credit based on the excess equity up to the max that they would have financed you anyway. And that's what really over the years, it started with the land, which gave me the line of credit. And then after I did 5, 10 deals, I'd roll them into another line of credit to expand, right? And then I'll do it again and again. And that's where in 2020, when the real estate started going crazy, well, everywhere except for some states up north and out, that's where we started saying, all right, deal flow is kind of slowing down. What other opportunities are there? And that's where I started getting into private money lending, which that became its own beast. And I actually ended up launching a fund last year for more hard money lending, just because the fix and flip market, while it can be soft in some areas, it's still strong in others. And we've been able to make a really good return when our deal flow isn't quite there. Doesn't mean that other people aren't making great deals, so we just go out there to meet the need when they need the funding and they've got the deal. Then I just put
Yeah.
mine to work.
Well, that's the natural evolution. Like you start out as a wholesaler, you don't have any
Yeah.
money. And then
Yeah.
you do a little bit of money, you keep a couple, you wholesale two, keep one, some sort of machination of that. And then once you get to that point and you start to build a net worth and some cash flow, and then you become a, private lender or JV guy, whatever. That's kind of then if you don't take it, that's kind of the evolution I've just seen over the years of when you become successful, you eventually hit that point. And then at some point you take the whole portfolio and sell it and hold notes and just ride off in the sunset, and
Like
service
you're
it
are you
again.
sitting there with some tarot cards? Because I feel like I'm getting like my future told to me right now.
No, it's just well, I'm big on data, and I've had a lot of really great mentors. I can't say enough about the people that have been there for me. That's why like we're pretty open and sharing in the RIA. We
Yeah.
really do. I mean, we really one of the guys who sat down and really helped me get my head right, he told me, he goes, all right, doing this for you, so now you owe three. So he goes, you got to find three of you at some point between now and the day that you leave this and repay this favor. And I'm past that.
Yeah.
So,
No, I
and
like
the
it.
hard part is to actually listen because it's frustrating. You sit down, I'll have a cup of coffee with somebody and just dump a bunch in their head, and then they just go off and do what they were going to do anyways. I've had a lot of calls where people, well, should have, and they go through and figure it out. But yeah, it's I call it the gift. You know what I mean? Somebody gave you a gift, and now you have an obligation to go out and do at least one, but pay it forward a little more, three. I mean, how many people do over the years? It's scary when you think.
It really is. And it's almost like you've been divinely along the path, right? And one of the things that I enjoy is putting on these seminars. I love to go out and teach and really share knowledge because while the knowledge, I don't feel that anybody should pay $40,000 to learn what wholesaling is. So I teach it in 5 minutes, the concepts. And if you norms, call up a title company and say, hey, look, are you a wholesaler friendly title company? Fantastic. What assignment clause do you enjoy that somebody brings to you? Now you've got your paperwork and you've got the established relationship. You've already done that. Just wrap your head around the concept of wholesale. It's the same thing with rentals, flips. People want to complicate it so that they can charge you for this information. And I try to strip all that because, like you said, when my time comes to be, then I want to make sure that I at least left some positive impressions with people.
Yeah,
And they were able to change families' lives just like I was able to change mine.
It's funny you talk about that. Somebody just sent me an offer on a lot, and we took the standard one-page contract and for land. And I'm pretty sure Jack Alexander came up with a secure holdings in '04, and it has been floated all around town. I got a copy of it in 2019 when we were gearing up one company, and made some very specific changes, verbiage of it. And
Yeah.
this wholesaler sent me literally Jack's
Your
contract with
version.
my changes, you know what I mean? And I was just like, wow, like, hey, that's a great contract. Yeah, we use it all the time. I'm like, well, I guess I got a little, the lot he sent me, I mean, it's retail plus 10%. The whole, at some point, how he fixed these wholesalers. I admire all these young people that are literally taking a cell phone and the internet white pages and trying to grind out to better themselves. But at some point,
That's the rub.
yeah,
Yeah.
you've also got to have some knowledge, particularly what the property's worth. Because I talked to one guy who just ties whatever the seller wants, he ties it up, and then he goes to Facebook and posts and posts and posts, and it's just every one of those sellers now. You just made it real for a second, that dumb number
Yeah.
that they worth. So,
Oh
and
yeah.
it's never going to close.
No. That's one of the frustrations that you see with it, and why I try to, tell people, hey, look, just on social media, some of these, I'll do wholesaling content. It's not a primary focus for me. It's just something that, I've done. My largest assignment was $50,000, which that's a hell of an assignment. I'm not taking anything away. There are people out there literally flipping commercial, paper for, thousands of dollars.
We
So
got
I just
our
tell people,
biggest assignment, just pure assignment of contract, was $85,000 on a saltwater lot in the Cape. And
nice.
we had an internal bet. Like, there's no way the buyer, when they see this assignment, they did. They had a getting a commission, so that usually helps
Yeah.
make things happen. But the I was like sitting around and I was being the pessimist. I'm like, I would go crazy when you need that HUD. Like, there is no way, and you know what I mean. But the
Oh
dude
yeah.
closed, so I mean, it was a good buy, buying at 85% of market in 2021, which was a pretty hot time for land.
Oh
So,
yeah.
well, you have to
And
at
that's
that
what
point.
happens.
Say again.
Oh, I said that's what happened on my first deal. It was transactional funding for a double close
Yeah.
so that the wholesaler could bury the profit that he was making just because he knew the end buyer was the kind of person that says, man, you don't need to make over $5,000.
Well,
You
we've
know,
got a lot
so
of people don't know this. We have a corporate sponsor in the REIA Shemtov title, and
yeah,
they've done a ton business for me, and they will do transactional funding on double closings if it's tight. I think they
exactly.
only either point or 2 points to bring it in. So, I
Yeah,
mean,
pretty
and
standard, just 1 to 2.
and then what's amazing with that, and like young wholesalers, they just think that extra set of closing costs is costing them, lots of money out of money. But
Yeah,
what's more importantly is you put your name in public records as actually a real lot buyer. I got a lot to be competing with other land buyers, and I would get on the phone, because I had six or on the phone at the time, and then we'd get
yeah,
involved if it was really close and a good deal. I'd be like, go to leeclerk.org, type in this LLC. Okay, you're going to see about 100 deed in and out. Now put in their
yeah,
name, and guess what? There's nothing. So I'm like, all they're going to do is try and sell it to me at a higher number, and you already know what my number is. So there's no way I'm
yeah.
going to buy from them at that higher number. So now that getting on
Actually,
title is huge.
I think you answered there is kind of helping wholesalers fix that mindset of lack. Because the fact that, I learned this a while, I'm hitting my numbers. It's okay that somebody else makes a living too, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to go over here and just crush everything and squeeze every bit of equity out for myself. If I'm going to make my projected numbers and somebody's going to make just as much money or more by flipping it over to me, then guess what? I'm still hitting my numbers. I don't
Yeah.
need to know or take anything off of their table. And when wholesalers have that mindset of, oh man, these fees are going to get me, then yeah, you're constantly living in lack, and that's going to keep you in a mindset that's going to hurt you. So I think that would be one thing, is kind of like helping wholesalers get educated. Then also understand that there's a lot of business out there. As a matter of fact, even that, to your point about being on the deed, I was called about a month and a half ago from a guy. He was wholesaling a deal back in Louisiana in the market that I'm in. He said, hey, look, I noticed that you're a buyer over here. He looked me up from sales. And then I said, yeah, I'm over here, but I'm not interested in this property. I do know a guy though. And I said, if you want, I'll JV, we'll dispo it together and I'll kick it over. Jeff, I made a 5-minute phone call and made $3,500.
Wow.
I mean, I love those kind of where you're just the guy, you make a connection, you get a little kickback on it, and you keep it moving. You didn't have to sweat it, you didn't have to stress it. The deal done, it closed in like 4 days. So,
See, we were a volume approach when my company, Real Cap Ventures, we did a volume approach. I mean, I had a couple developers sold a lot of lots to, and I probably made $3,000 a lot, but
yeah,
they'd buy 10 a month from me.
exactly.
You know, so
Yeah.
at that point, it's about a relationship. But the cool part is, every offer I wrote, I knew at that moment that was a transaction. It wasn't like I got to tie this up. That's the biggest thing I see in wholesaling is these guys. They in a lot. I mean, like I'm currently directed marketing as well. So like I won't give a
Mhm.
buy box wholesaler because I'm like, all I'm going to do is now I'm going to be running into you at roughly the same
Tripping over
numbers.
my deals.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm sorry, but I'm like, everything you send me, that's good, but I'm not
Yeah.
giving you my buy. Or if I give them a buy box, I'm probably going to add a little. And so, but it's just business. Now that and really, the guys share, which usually is a red flag for me. Like, I look at all these checks, and never, you never seen me. This is a second I've talked in public about that assignment consideration. If I wanted to be a guru, the 85 grand, that would have been Facebook for days.
Oh, that's your hook. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I
Yeah.
don't, I mean, I want to do attention to what we're doing because we're doing it well. I'm going to do it till I can't do it anymore. But a lot of these young wholesalers, they don't understand, maybe pay your dues a little bit, and I'm not saying you got something on the table, but you also have to build a book of business and you got to be able to perform. I think we did one assignment with because of some problems with the lot. I think we made $250. But I had sold
Mhm.
that person, signed them probably 40 contracts year to date. You know what I mean? So at that
Yeah.
point, whatever it takes we made $1, and
Yeah.
I don't lose this relationship. More importantly, you
I've
know.
come to find that that's the most important thing that'll carry you forward is the relationships, right? That
Mhm.
help you through the way. Because even now, so on one of my 4 monitors, I've got this other screen up right now that I'm reviewing some PPMs and offering memorandum for an apartment complex that I'm working on. So if the LOI gets accepted, we're going to put together the agreement and keep it rolling. And brother, I'm going to need to raise about 4.5 million. So as that happens, stays it cold. So as you've worked with people over the years, you
Yeah.
can make the phone calls, you can put this together, you can have these deals, but only if you have the relationships and you're not out here cutting everybody else's throat trying to just get your plate.
I can remember I was a distressed debt fund. I was the analyst, and I think I owned enough of it to say I owned some of it. Oh, but the we went out and raised capital in 2000. I'll never forget it, in 2008, on the heels of Bernie Madoff in the middle of the great financial crisis. And I came home from, my wife asked me what the meeting was like. And I was like, everybody in the room put on blindfolds, and the guys with money got pistols and shot around the room. And if we all were standing there at the end of the meeting, they invested. So, and that's pretty much, I've been yelled at by finest yellers on the planet. And it was a pretty intense meeting. It was a really intense meeting, I mean, it was if you had any money.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, raising capital is always fun. It's never easy, and hard to give because to give your money to you got to have some kind of a margin of safety,
Yeah.
with this stuff. So God
I'll
bless
tell
that.
you, whenever I started my fund last year, the SEC attorney that was helping with the document formation, he's like, okay, now have you decided if you're going 506C, 506B, which one? I said, well, I'd like to go 506B, and try to keep it like, no, I've already seen some of the stuff that you put out on social media. You're way too vocal. You'll talk about the deal too much. You've got to go 506C. And well, Jeff, you heard my origin story, right? From back
Yeah.
there. We started with $6,000. We didn't most likely have a huge network of people with high net worth. So that was a little difficult. I've got a few people that committed that I've been doing some sidecar lending with their capital because, well, mine is finite, believe it or not. I know that a lot of them on social media like to flex like they've got infinite. No, mine's finite. And whenever it's tapped, I go to other people to continue lending. And whenever I was raising capital for the fund, brother, I was facing what is it? An uncertain election. Then we go into the tariff, the trade wars, everything else. So it was just like block, block, block. Because again, I hadn't a lot of those high net worth relationships. Even today, I'm still going out to events, forming those to make sure that people understand, so that they don't see you just one of those casual hit and run people that are out there trying to just raise capital, do one bad deal, and then they keep it moving.
Well, you're coming on, especially in the multi space, you're coming on the heels of a whole lot of YouTube and Instagram influencers that
Yeah.
weren't operators, but they raised a bunch of money. And honestly, the deal you're probably buying is one of those deals from the bank who funded it all. I can share with you, we did those distressed debt funds, and we did pretty well with them until like the BlackRocks came into that, and we couldn't compete with their cost of capital. We were 10%, a 70-30 promote, and probably borrowing from the Fed at 3 at that point. You know what I mean? And they're just, and then on top of it, we had a little bit of name, but not enough of a name to matter compared to you taking BlackRock's offer or these dudes from Fort Myers.
Yeah.
Ironically, like the mid Cape office industrial. I think we were the third or fourth buyer the fund was on that, and because all the big boys tied it up and then killed it, and we actually had a plan for it. But I can tell you for what you're dealing with, the if the first fund goes, we'll never leave you. To the
Yeah,
point
exactly.
where we did a land fund, and the lead investor to that point didn't want to do it, even though the spreadsheet was clearly saying land was okay now. It was bottomed and actually starting to trend up. And he wasn't in the land fund that absolutely crushed because it was the perfect timing of the land market bottom, particularly in the Cape. And once those guys have made money with you and then they don't on one fund, oh my God, he was a
Yeah.
lead investor on the next. So
And that's why I do the other ways that I do it is because it is my first fund. So I don't charge the management fees and all this other stuff that they can get into bloating or diluting the numbers and returns for the investors. It's very clean, right? 8 pref, I get a 2% catch up, and then we go carried interest. That's the way that, is the most fair because again, if you don't have the history, you've got to be willing to give a lot more before you can start saying this is the way that it's going to be. Plus, again, like I said earlier, it's okay for other people to win too.
yeah, I can tell you the biggest you're going to face, because once you start getting a little, is that drift.
Yeah.
But you're going to have the drift. Do you focus on the deals or do you focus on the capital raising? Because you're going to hit a point where you bring somebody in that does the capital raising if you're going to be the deal guy.
Right.
Because I can tell you what I already went down this journey. I wasn't, I mean, I guess technically you could say I'm principal in a few of the funds, the small ownership. I was the analyst primarily, but which was great to be in the background with the math and then watch the negotiations. But the drift is you're going to watch, because, you've got a funds that have to get bigger and it's kind of the growth or you stagnate, but you'll get so focused on the capital raise that the deal analytics don't do as well. I can just tell you that's the drift I've seen. And then on top of that, the market, we got a lot of people market where before we'd be the only bidder,
Yeah.
So I always laugh the Blue Crab Car Wash. It's probably the coolest thing we ever listed and sold in regional bank. Threw that in the last moment. You buy this or we're not doing the deal. And yeah, and but we ended up right, but we broke even on it. We didn't, but it kind of drug down our yield a little bit. In hindsight, I kind of look at all that, and we probably should have ground on that. But I mean, for me, it was kind of cool to go in and see where the quarters went when we got the keys after the foreclosure. That was kind of cool moment. But yeah,
Yeah.
just to share with you that the first couple funds are easy, and if you get lucky, you know what I mean. If some things go your way, you're going to do really well. And then the capital raise versus the deal. At some point, each becomes its own in life.
Yeah. Well,
So
and one of the great things about that I love personally is that the deal flow comes easily to me just because when you go out and you create the content and you share the education with people, so long as they listen and take action, because it's still going to be that Pareto principle, right? The 80-20. I
Yeah.
can go teach to a room of I might do something, right? And there's 80 that do absolutely nothing. That's why I have no problem sharing my strategy, because it doesn't matter how big the audience is. There's only going to be a fraction that want to do something. And whenever they do, I love the fact that I've established a little bit of mind share, and then they'll think to come back to me and hit me up for the loan. So it kind of creates more of a passive deal regard. And I
Yeah.
wish my camera would stop blurring out, but, you know.
I think it's the light behind you is confusing.
Probably so, man. I'm going to have to tint these windows. It's yeah, I get such horrible washout,
Well, it'll
especially
save you money too, long run.
what's that? Yeah,
I said the tinted windows will save you money long. I did just sidecar. I did after Hurricane Ian, impact glass everywhere, and you don't get any heat transference through it. It's actually amazing how much it changed my electric bill. So
well, that's another argument for another day. My wife's, I want to do the pool first. I want to do these other things before we upgrade. And I'm sure you understand that what they decide is generally what goes.
yeah, no, that's usually the way it goes.
Yeah, yeah. Some
So
arguments I just don't have an interest in winning. You know.
so I mean, anything you want to share? I'm curious about on the multifamily because that's a space that there's going to be some deal flow in. There's some distress there. I see a lot of hand kicking. Uh, I subscribe to where there's a it's Credit IQ. They basically every time there's a CMBS securitization, what's coming out. And there's a couple securitizations that came out. The last two were like 80% refis and 20% were multifamily and were office and commercial business districts, which is the two biggest things that are taking beatings.
Yeah.
And if they're refining them, that just tells they're kicking cans. That's a great little hey, as long as you can keep paying this, kick this down the road for 4 or 5 more years and figure this out.
Yeah.
So, but I
mean,
really
just
see that multifamily that flow is going to pick up because there is a lot of syndicators that
yeah.
were syndicators but not operators. You've actually
That's
owned a rental
yeah.
property as opposed to a really profitable YouTube channel, so you're already in the top percentile.
Yeah.
And there's
This
going
was
to,
just
I think, a lot
operational.
of flow.
I think the deal flow is going to be immense the next few years. And this one, just going over there for 4.5 million, because that's going to include the purchase and the stabilization, right? And it's 90 units. We're working on that, so we'll see how that goes. But I think that being able to, I'm just kind of thinking of it like a boomerang, right? Being sold at a low current cap rate for its performance. I think there's a lot of operational lift that we can take to it, and it's mostly just bad management, bad leasing, because it was remodeled 7 years ago, and average rents, they're stable. So I don't see a lot of heavy lift on it. Plus, I'm very familiar with the market, and I'm excited to see what comes of it. But also, it gives me that foot in the door, because a 4.5 million project can become a $10 million project, can
Yeah.
become 15. So it's that first step along the
You got
journey.
to start somewhere. I can tell you, we were struggling in the beginning on these note sales way back in the day, and we actually moved capital to the bank that we're trying to buy from.
Smooth.
So
Yeah.
the SAG officer were like, "If you need a proof of funds, here's the account number." And when he realized we were a client, it really helped. At that point they were like, "Oh yeah, we'll send you something," and we never hear.
Oh yeah.
So
It's like,
you
well, we
definitely
went
have to
way
get
back.
one. Say again.
Yeah, exactly. I said at that point you've got deposits in the account, so it's like, no, we've got history.
Yeah, well, that too, and to tell you, 4 tranches, KBW, a big Wall Street auction house, was auctioning 4 tranches of notes in town. And I think tranches 1, 2, and 3 were houses, and 4 was lots. But at the time, the lots were poison. Because land represents hope, and it wasn't in this market. You were hearing talk 20 years of recovery. It didn't take nearly that, but you still do due diligence on everything. And it was discovered that in these packages of lots that had 2,000 square foot houses that just need to be CO'd, but somehow they miscategorized them and they didn't catch it. Either they threw it in to get somebody to buy it, or they didn't
Yeah.
catch it. Either way, nobody else caught it in the due diligence because nobody wanted to spend the time to because even LIPA wasn't that sophisticated back then, and buy all these lots. So, and
That's what I was going to say. Google Street View wasn't a thing back then.
Yeah,
So
so it was caught there, and suddenly you've got houses that are worth 80 you can buy in the lot, but it's a big package of lots, and then there was something that was learned that at that point there was still people willing to check to get off the hook. So that was, the whole thing was we did a lot, and the due diligence was actually that somebody screwed up or purposely screwed up, but nobody else in town caught it. It was kind of funny when it got closed on, because that's when I first came to this fund, and I actually met these guys. I knew them personally, but I met these guys because I had done due diligence for a big private equity firm out of Bradenton on tranches 1, 2, and 3, and building a model to do the bid on it. And when they bought it, I was like, "What?" And then I sat down and I'm like, okay, you guys actually do the work too. Start working together, and that was the first fund that, as long as you crush the first one, you just build on it. I'm just telling you though,
yeah,
if your investors, what I learned is they once it becomes real and they make money, they were personally offended if you do a deal without them, which is a good thing, but a bad thing too. So
yeah, that's one of the things that was a dynamic to wrap my head around is just okay. We get the first part, and it started out. There was one guy that he's got probably a little over $500,000 out. He started out with $50,000 just micro, and he got his return. He's like, oh wait, this was legit. I actually got paid back. Nice. Then he went to 100. Now we're doing a 250. Just because he keeps scaling up and his
yeah,
comfort level, because it's a track record of look, we secure the loan asset, it's first position, it's clean. If for some reason, like my underwriting's off and they shit the bed, so to speak, right, and I have to pick up this deal and perform, you're still going to be able to come out, and that's one of the things that it takes people after, especially '08, and when the whole Bernie Madoff thing went sideways, people lost trust in a lot of those people. So going out there and building that up, and so there are still great people out there that do want you to make money. It's okay because they're going to make money too. And as I've built those relationships, albeit only a few, and we're still growing those. It's been
yeah.
a shift.
Yeah, I enjoyed talking to you, man. I gotta
Yeah,
jump on a meeting here
same
shortly,
here.
but
I've got a
look,
meeting to get to.
yeah, but no, and if you honestly, I walk the path you're walking. If you need help,
Yeah.
don't be afraid to reach out. I mean, I can just
Oh,
tell you, I thought raising capital, we're going to do this, and we're smart, and nothing like that. So
yes, I know. Well, in that case, I'll take you up on that, and then I'll make sure to pass that to 3 other people. So,
cool. Look forward to hearing you speak at the RIA, and
yeah.
if anybody wanted to get in touch with you, how would they?
Yeah, so email is probably best. And if it's going to be loanlee@ncap.com, or you can go to my website withlee.com. Got a free version of my book on there. Feel free to go there, check it out. It's about a 35 minute read. And yeah, it's going to cover the basics and give you some of the stories of, well, some of the war stories of what we've been through over the past 10 years.
Cool, and I'll put a link to that in the YouTube video as well.
Yeah, sounds great.
Awesome.
Jeff, I appreciate you having me on.
Enjoyed it.
Thanks, man.